Welcome to the QP Diaries podcast. This podcast is all about inspiring and empowering the next generation of QP professionals and future quality assurance leaders in the UK pharmaceutical industry. On every episode, I'll be speaking to QPs from across the industry, and our listeners will have the opportunity to hear their stories, their expertise, and we are going to be discussing topics to foster growth and learning to help you develop your career as a qualified person. If you're passionate about quality assurance and want to learn from some of the very best QPs and thought leaders from across the industry, then this is a podcast for you. I'm your host, Dal, founder of AssureBio, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.
We are proud to have partnered with NSF as a sponsor of the QP Diaries podcast. Becoming a qualified person is a significant commitment of time, effort and resources, and the QPs trained by NSF are widely recognised as the very best in the industry, with no other training provider matching their experience or success rate. If you're interested in learning more about NSF's QP training course, you can find the link in the show notes. For now, we hope you enjoy this episode of the QP Diaries podcast. Hi Catherine, welcome to the QP Diaries podcast.
Hi, thank you, Dal. Thanks for inviting me. Good to see you.
Yeah, and you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I wanted to actually start off by saying a big thank you to yourself and NSF for coming on board as our new sponsor. So it's exciting to kick off this partnership with yourself and the team.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for asking us, and we're delighted to work together on this because we've seen some of your previous series of QP Diaries and they're great, so it's great to be part of it, so thanks.
Excellent, yeah. And today's episode is actually going to be really insightful then for anyone who's aspiring to become a qualified person. As yourself, who works at NSF, you're going to tell our listeners a little bit more about the training courses and the support you provide to anyone who's going on that journey to become a QP. But before we actually get into that, you're obviously a QP yourself. So you have been on this journey. So we're going to rewind the clock as we do the Diaries, just so we can hear your story and your career journey and get your perspective on the role itself. So over to you, Catherine. Do you want to kick it off with an introduction and then you can share your journey to becoming a QP, please?
Yeah. So just briefly, so I'm part of the NSF team. So I'm executive director at NSF. In our global training and education program, where we cover pharmaceuticals, dietary supplements, medical devices, and I've been with NSF just over 7 years now. So left industry and joined this, and been enjoying it. So
Brilliant. And then going back to many years ago, maybe when you
it was a while back. Yeah, it was a while back. So I just a little bit of background on how I kind of became a QP for those that are interested, although it was some time ago now. So I completed a degree in chemistry, and then I joined a company called Merck Sharp and Dome, and I actually was lucky to join them on what they called then a 2-year graduate trainee program in manufacturing management. So I sort of following that, I had the opportunity to really work in numerous departments. I worked in supply chains, so doing planning in the warehouse. I worked in the technical teams, doing tech transfers and validations. And then I kind of ended up in production, responsible for a team on the shop floor. So first line direct management of a manufacturing team. So kind of I would say those first, 7 to 8 years of my career really gave me an understanding of how a manufacturing facility worked, right from how materials were received through to the manufacturing processes, how they were developed, validated, right through onto kind of commercial manufacture and release. Yeah. And I suppose like anyone that's worked on a manufacturing facility, they realise that you're kind of faced with day-to-day challenges and there's improvements to be made and you're collaborating with many different departments. And obviously as part of that time that I was in operations production, I worked closely with the quality team and the QPs on site. And I suppose being a chemist as well, I always had that attention to detail, that eye for detail, and I enjoyed kind of the technical side of making products, making medicinal products, and I fronted lots of regulatory inspections, so I was aware of, compliance and patient safety. That was always kind of the forefront of everything that we did. But I mean, the company, the organisation I worked for was very much, set up that way. And anyway, I had all of this experience in kind of what I would say supply chain technical operations, and then there was a job opportunity came up in the quality team in quality assurance. So it was an advertisement, and they wanted a trainee QP.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, shall I apply? It was, at the time it was a sideways step. It wasn't necessarily a promotion, but it was an opportunity to learn something new, something different. So I just, jumped at the chance, really. I thought, well, if I can learn something new, that excites me. I felt I had experience to bring to the role. So I went for it and got the role, thankfully, and then really started then my QP, my formal QP training. But what I would say to people that any work that you're doing within an organisation, regardless of whether it's in quality or not, is all part of your experience, your work experience that you bring then into, if you go on to become a QP, into that role. So I had all of those years experience already, so that really helped me understand how to manufacture products. And actually, I think having worked in production, understanding the day-to-day challenges and issues, the practicalities of actually how things worked on the shop floor. Sometimes actually how the procedure is written isn't actually how things happen, and we need to change that and improve that.
Yeah.
And I've built relationships with different departments. So yeah, it was a natural progression. And so I started the course, the training, should I say, and actually, kind of it's a blast from the past, but when I started training, I did my training with what was known then as David Begg Associates. And for those older people in the audience that are listening to this, they will know David Begg Associates, that were then acquired by NSF, who I now work for. So I did my training, started in 2003, so a long time ago now, with David Begg Associates. And so I went on courses with them, obviously continued my experience within the organisation I was with. And then in early 2006, I then completed the training. I had 2 sons, and I went through my Viva, and I became eligible and was added to the license. I actually did my Viva whilst I was on maternity leave. I had a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old. A bit crazy. Basically, the baby arrived sooner than I was expecting. I was hoping to do the Viva before I went on maternity leave. That didn't quite happen. But I just was so driven. I wanted to get it done. I'd done all the work. I'd done the revision. So I just thought, I've got to get this done. Yeah. So actually, for the company, they could do the variation and get me on the license, so that when I came back from maternity leave, I was straight into a releasing QP. And I would say, that has very much led to many kind of future career opportunities that I've, been faced with, luckily, in my career. But yeah, that's how it all started.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. What a journey, and surely a very challenging experience, trying to juggle the family and live a prep to go and sit the examination. So what year? Was it 2006?
So it was 2006, 2006. Yeah, and that's something I'd just sort of say, we're all faced with challenges, and I think you just have to, if you've got that kind of, positive attitude that I'm going to do this, and you set yourself targets and you drive yourself forward to that, you will. And of course, you need to have the experience and background, but you will be successful. I think you just sometimes have to have courage in your own convictions. So that's what I would say to people.
Absolutely, yeah. And was there any inspiration to pursue the path? I mean, people in the organisation, for example, what about the role of being a QP?
Yeah, I mean, as I sort of previously described, it wasn't kind of necessarily my immediate career decision. I didn't join a pharma company and think, I want to become a QP. I would say it was very much my career evolved, as I was faced with new opportunities, and I followed my interests, I suppose, and so. When I was working in that first role at Merck Sharp and Dome, I was working with the QPs. I mean, I had a fabulous operations mentor, but I saw the role of the QP, and I saw that it was an important one, and you could really make a difference through championing change, continuous improvements, which ultimately ensured that good quality product was out there in the market for patients to take. So. I saw that, as a good role, but it was very much an evolution. I think, I was lucky that I had the opportunity to work in different departments, and then I took the opportunities when, they were given to me. And as I say, that role came up and I applied and was successful. I would say sometimes the role can be quite overwhelming, because you're often sometimes seen as the go-to person for decisions, and so that can be difficult. But I think sometimes you have to take that step back and think, well, I've also got subject matter experts that can, help and support me in that. But certainly for me, whilst I was in that role, I think I made it one of my missions as well to educate, to explain to people the why behind some of the decisions that have to be made, or sometimes the reasons that things just have to be done in a certain way. We have to follow these guidelines and these rules, and sometimes some of them aren't always that straightforward. But yeah, so that was very much part of my ethos, is making sure that I brought people with me and explained the why, and they had that understanding. And so yeah, so I suppose that's kind of why I enjoy the role I do so much now, in training and education. So yeah.
Yeah, well, you can certainly see your passion for people's learning and development, and as you say, that's why you do the role that you do right now. So, based on your experience then, and knowing the importance of investment in people, in particular in an organisational culture and quality culture, why is that so important?
Yeah, it's extremely important. I mean, those that know me well, they know that kind of this is close to my heart, and ultimately investing in people can have a profound, I'd say can have a profound and transformative impact on an organisation, in the culture. You want to foster that learning culture. So employers, in my mind, employers have to help employees become expert learners, because people with the will to learn, the skill to do it effectively, have the ability to apply that learning, will absolutely positively impact their organisation and the performance of their teams. It's a known fact that companies that invest in employee development absolutely increase profitability. And so if I was kind of, I suppose, explaining that a little bit more, so what does that mean? So what can what are some of the things that kind of demonstrate that?
Yeah.
I'd say by investing in people, it certainly creates that culture. Certainly that's, I would say, in my early days, right from the offset, that culture of continuous improvement. So looking to seek out new knowledge, innovative solutions, thinking creatively, proposing new ideas and approaches, so absolutely kind of employee development helps promote that.
Yeah.
When organisations invest in their employees, I would say, it demonstrates their commitment in employees as well, which increases engagement, engagement, motivation to do the role, and ultimately loyalty. As I say, that first role that I had, I think I was there for 14 years all in all, and I probably would have still stayed there had I not been faced with a fantastic opportunity to move and join a company that was setting up a brand new facility in the UK. So I just thought, well, I've got to, make this change. But, I definitely was very loyal and motivated to work with Merck Sharp and Dohme because of the development opportunities they gave me. So just kind of, building on that kind of engagement and loyalty piece.
Yeah.
So, we do know that engaged employees are more likely to contribute positively to organisational culture, and it absolutely aids retention of your employees. Yeah. Which then kind of links into retaining employees, but also attracting top talent. If you see an organisation is really prioritising employee development, it's going to attract that top talent. People are more likely to join that company. If they see that they've got opportunities for growth and development, and also then those that are within the company are more likely to stay. And I think, obviously a good example of that, is people being supported through their QP training program, because it is a large investment for companies. It's a journey that people go on, and obviously the QP trainees do need the support from the organisation. And what else on there? I don't know if you've heard of the term organisational resilience, and that's something that we talk about quite a bit, and through some of our training as well. And investing in employee development definitely builds a workforce that is more resilient and adaptable to change, which I think is so important in today's world. I think change is happening at quite a massive pace, and sometimes people can struggle with that. And I think that's it. Having employees that are equipped, with up-to-date skills, they have the knowledge, that helps them then kind of be adaptable to those changes and respond effectively. So that's, kind of another key point. But I suppose if I was to summarise, and as you can see, I'm quite interested in this topic, but if I was to summarise, I'd say ultimately, employees who feel valued and supported are more likely to have a positive attitude towards the work in their organisation, and that can, like, that positivity that you kind of breed absolutely then spreads throughout the organisation. So you get, more collaboration, more cohesive work environment, and I was very lucky to experience that early on in my career. So one message to all employers out there that I want to shout is please invest in your people, because it really does build that culture of continuous improvement, of collaboration, innovation, and ultimately, leading to improved organisational performance and success, without a doubt. So, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of those points that you said there, Catherine. I mean, I put my recruitment hat on and I have these conversations with my clients in terms of, okay, what are their recruitment strategies, but also what are their retention strategies?
Yeah.
And the conversation always has to be core. The core focus has to be on, are you investing in your people? Like, do you have that sort of culture of learning and development? Because that ultimately retains people, as you mentioned. So everything.
And it's not just about, when we talk about investment, it's not just talking about, sending them on a training course. It's around giving them opportunities within the workplace, actually empowering them, letting them take responsibility. Because actually, you never know actually the power of individuals when they have, when they're kind of given that free rein. Yes, obviously within controlled boundaries, but what a difference they can make. So
yeah, that's it. And you say obviously it impacts the organisation as a whole, and obviously most people at the very top will be looking at the profits.
Yes.
They will obviously know that, okay, if they are investing in the people, as you say, that of course there is a knock-on effect, and it makes the business more powerful and grow quicker, which is what I'm sure they want. We're taking a moment to share a message from Catherine Kay, who is the Executive Director at our sponsor NSF, where she highlights the benefits of their training programme for trainee QPs.
Our trainers for our courses are experts. They're experts from industry, have had many years' experience and bring a wealth of knowledge to our training courses. We also provide Viva preparation sessions for them every month where they can practice answering questions in a group scenario. NSF have a long-standing partnership with the University of Strathclyde, so not only do our courses meet the requirements of the QP study guide, but they're also taught at a master's level. So that means that people can go on to and acquire a postgraduate certificate, diploma or even master's with the University of Strathclyde. Then you can go to our webpage, so nsf.org, and we have a whole page there set to our qualified person training, so you can read more there.
Okay, so bringing it back to then the role of the QP. So from your perspective, and you obviously meet a lot of trainees who go on that journey. So what qualities or skills do you believe are essential for someone who's aspiring to excel as a QP?
Okay, how long have you got? I've got a long list. So of course, you definitely need a combination of that technical expertise, goes without saying, and the regulatory knowledge piece. And then of course there's the personal attributes, which maybe I'll list a few of those. But and it goes without saying that actually you need to have the capacity to remain calm and focused as well in high pressure situations. I think is a key one as well. So regulatory knowledge, of course, so you've got to stay up to date. You've got to, understand the changes in regulations and, ensure compliance, of course, is key. And then there's the technical expertise, as I mentioned, so people have to, trainee QPs, when thinking about this, and they need to have that solid kind of foundation in pharmaceutical science and technology and understand processes and quality control techniques and product development and so on. So that's kind of a given. But then if we come on to the personal attributes, which are things that are assessed as well, as part of the Viva process, because obviously the sponsor has to assess the trainee that's being put forward. So you absolutely need to have strong analytical skills. They're necessary even more so now to, assess complex data, to be able to, make informed decisions and, using data then to, conduct risk assessments, etc. So analytical skills are key. attention to detail, I think, is a given, is essential to identify and address issues and problems, deviations from quality standards, and so forth. And then linked, obviously, kind of goes in hand with the analytical skills, is the problem solving. So QPs need to have that ability to identify problems and ask the right questions when you're investigating root causes and implementing those corrective actions. So the QP really needs to be proactive rather than reactive. So proactive in preventing and resolving quality issues. So I always see the QP as a champion of continuous improvement, and for me, and I advise people as well, to kind of have that curiosity as well of how the brain works. So you might have heard about the term sort of human factors or human performance, having the curiosity about that. So human factors, very briefly, is about how our work is organised, how the job and task is designed, and how we're supported to be competent in the work that we're being asked to be carried out, and also how we manage risk. And so therefore, not just in the QP role, I would say in any role when you're in a manufacturing facility, understanding error traps, gaps in our processes, so that we can actually implement the right solutions and help people do the right thing, making it easier for people, to do it right every day, is really important. So that kind of asking questions, championing continuous improvement, trying to understand where those potential gaps are, so that we can be proactive and put changes in place before things go wrong. So so what else on my list of attributes? Communication, effective communication is vital. Obviously, you've got to collaborate not only internally with departments, but also externally, and to regulators as well. I would say sometimes the QP is not always the bearer of good news, and so clear communication can, make sure that people are aligned, they're informed about quality matters, and going back to what I said before, they understand the why, the reasons sometimes behind those decisions. So and leadership skills are really important. I mean, as a QP, you might not necessarily be directly responsible for people, but you do absolutely need to be able to influence and guide teams, manage projects, ensure that quality standards are upheld. So leadership is important, and kind of what links in hand with that is the QP often plays a key role in training and mentoring of staff as well, and that people in operations, but also other trainee QPs. So that that's key, and then that kind of all links in with having good organisational skills, and of course it goes without saying a strong sense of ethics and integrity is fundamental, but that goes without saying for anybody that works in an organisation that's manufacturing medicinal products. So really there's a whole blend of things. Excelling as a QP requires that blend of those skills that I mentioned, but also I think having that commitment to lifelong learning, because that's essential to stay current with industry advancements. So it's not just we never stop. And I would say it's a challenging but absolutely a rewarding role, which is obviously plays a critical part of ensuring safety of our products. So was that list long enough for you?
It was quite long, but I mean, just from what I took for that, a lot of QPs I speak to talk about lifelong learning quite a lot, so I do hear that phrase quite often. And I think from what you listed, obviously there's no perfect individual out there who can obviously pick up all of these skills and attributes. So it takes time. So there's I assume, a degree of patience in terms of your development as an individual, not just a QP, as a quality professional in general.
Completely agree. I think that's it. Time. I think sometimes, we're all keen, aren't we, when we leave university as graduates and kind of want to get into our careers, but I think at the start, just take time, do roles that you enjoy, and you're learning new things, but take that initial time to then, because you've got to gain that experience, and that takes time. If you want to do that role well. So yeah, so good advice.
Yeah. Okay. And talking about advice, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received in your career?
So
Probably a
I've
tough
received
one.
lots of advice, and I've been very lucky. Again, I had some great mentors over the time, and I would always advise people, if they can, get a mentor to support them, that's it's really helpful.
Mhm.
But I would say that the best piece of advice, and just links in I think with what we were just saying, is really always make time for personal development and to enhance your learning. But the important thing to highlight is that you as an individual have to be proactive, and you have to champion your own development. You can't expect others to do this for you. You can't expect, well, I'm at work, where's my development? You
Mhm.
have to own it. Absolutely, the company can support you, they can mentor you, they can give you guidance, but you have to drive it forward. So yeah, kind of as we just said, every day is a learning journey, really, and so you have to be open to learning and willing to gain those new experiences. But that was kind of key thing, that advice that I got early on, and have continued on through my
Yeah.
career and give to others. So yeah.
Yeah, I say it links back to lifelong learning and just being proactive with your own career. No one's going to do it for you. It's a commitment, and you've got dedication to keep.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
and looking forward to the future and the role of a QP. So in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, how do you see that evolving?
Yeah, well, I wish I had a crystal ball, because things are happening, things are changing all the time. But what I do know is that the role of the QP is changing, and therefore we need to keep up to date as QPs. There's those advancements in technology, regulatory changes, increasing complexity of the global pharmaceutical supply chain. So the QP absolutely needs to stay up to date with regulatory changes in regulations and so on. But also, if I kind of go beyond that, because I think that's a given, everybody knows that, is that as well, we're kind of being challenged with all of these there's many new innovative personalized therapies that are making their way through trial and commercialization. Novel drugs such as cell and gene therapies, they're incredibly complex, and it's not my area of expertise, but we're seeing it more and more with people coming on our
Yeah,
training programs. These cell and gene therapies are incredibly complex. They have unique mechanisms of action. And the way that they're manufactured and released, doesn't follow the normal kind of protocol, the normal process, the established process that sometimes, QPs see. And so they really have to, QPs nowadays that work in that area have to take that risk-based approach.
yeah,
And use critical thinking in their decision making, because they don't necessarily have all the data at the time that they've got to make that release decision. And so this is where they really rely heavily on the expertise of subject matter experts, kind of the scientists that are involved in this, to help them guide them. So that's definitely a kind of a key area. Of course, I have to mention the AI word. I think everybody talks about the adoption of new technologies such as AI and machine learning. It's definitely going to change the way we do things. So and we're still kind of trying to understand that, I think. But QPs do need to understand this and then integrate these technologies into the workflows, in manufacturing, to really make sure that we're getting the benefit of them, but also we're getting the right data, accuracy in the data that it's giving us. But that's definitely something that's kind of moving on. And I think obviously there's the increasing use of digital tools as well. So QPs have to be sort of proficient in data management and cybersecurity, making sure integrity and confidentiality of data that we have. But some people listening to this might have been to the Joint Professional Bodies QP symposium last year, but there was a great talk from CPI, talking about how they were using digital architecture for real-time release, and which should help the QP. But again, it's how do we validate those systems, and then we can obviously, great if we can do that real-time release piece.
yeah,
and of course, I mentioned at the start that global supply chain, the global nature of our pharmaceutical supply chain, is kind of requiring QPs to have that broader knowledge and understanding of international regulations as well, not just what's happening in UK and Europe.
yeah.
So definitely need to kind of understand what's going on there. So yeah, the role is definitely becoming more dynamic, more demanding, requiring that whole kind of combination of the technical expertise and the regulatory knowledge, as well as having that, adaptability to those new technologies. But, what I would say is that, it's important for QPs to know, they're not alone, yes, they have the final release decision, but, they absolutely should be calling on their subject matter expertise within their organizations to help them, make those informed decisions. So,
yeah. So I was going to ask that question, Catherine, there's still probably a lot of resistance to, say, like AI, for example. And the role is evolving so quickly and technology is advancing so quickly that would your advice be then, just make sure that you're not alone in it, that other people in the same situation, but the people around you.
Absolutely. It's coming back to that learning, isn't it? It's trying to understand it, find out more about it, ask questions, but also realize that, hey, it's not just you as on your own that's got to make these decisions. You're part of a team, so
and that goes back to your passion of you just really enjoy just the learning development, but you have to then have those people around you to help you develop.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then going into a bit more about the training and, of course, NSF and for the courses that you offer for prospective QPs. I mean, what excites you most about taking the trainees on this journey?
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's really exciting. I mean, I'd almost sort of say I'm privileged. I'm so lucky to be part of supporting and educating QPs of the future. I think anybody that does this, and I know talking to others at NSF or other, consultants that I work alongside, they really enjoy this part of the role where they are supporting and educating QPs of the future. Because, we've been through it, and there's a lot to juggle in life, right? There's lots going on. We have our day-to-day jobs. We're obviously looking to develop our careers. We need to look after ourselves, our well-being, our health. We then have our family, friends. And then when you throw in QP training on top of all of that, it can be extremely challenging and stressful. And especially if you're working in a smaller company or a startup, for example, that maybe there's the support, there's more limited support because you haven't got, other QPs in the organization. Sometimes they might only have contract QPs that come in a couple of days a week. You haven't got necessarily the exposure to all different dosage forms. So it is challenging. So I like to think that through the training that we deliver, the one-to-one coaching that we offer as well, that we help to provide some guidance on how to navigate your QP training through all of those challenges, and I really encourage people to expand their network. It's so important to build your network, and our QP alumni is absolutely fantastic for this. I mean, I'm very much in contact with those that I did my training with over 20 years ago. We're still in contact, we still meet up. Obviously, we have our QP alumni as well, but outside of that, that's so important. And so for me, when I hear that somebody that I've supported, that NSF have supported, has been successful in their Viva, it's really rewarding to potentially know that we've made a small difference in helping them in their careers. As well as knowing that they're going to keep us safe, right, as patients. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the networking piece, I think that's also really vitally important in terms of expanding the people that who are probably going through the same pain that they're going through. I believe there's a trainee QP symposium coming up, right?
So in June, the joint professional bodies, so they run like a QP symposium every 2 years, but they're running a trainee QP symposium in June. So NSF are supporting that, sponsoring that, and we've got Pete Goff that's going to be doing his regulatory update at that. So we'll be there, and I would definitely encourage people to sign up with the joint professional bodies to attend that. Because again, it's not just about the information that you'll receive in that symposium, but it's making connections with other people.
Yeah, that's it exactly. It's a bit of a must to go to that as a trainee QP then, as it's very rare they get everyone in one room on one day.
Absolutely, and they definitely, I know the QP symposiums always get booked up with the joint professional body, so I would encourage anybody to not wait to book, because I can't remember, it's a minimal amount of money anyway, but I would definitely encourage people, and hopefully I'll see them there. So
Excellent, Catherine. All right. Yeah, well, that's it for all my questions today. So thank you so much for being a guest on the QP Diaries podcast. And of course, as NSF being our sponsor now, so we'll share the information regarding the training courses in the link on the show notes for us. But
perfect. No, great. Well, no, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, enjoyed it. Enjoyed the chat. It was great.
Excellent. All right. You take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A huge thank you to our special guest and to our listeners for tuning into the QP Diaries podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. As the founder of AssureBio, we created the podcast to support our wider quality assurance community, which aligns to our dedicated offering as a recruitment agency to the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry across the UK. We have over 10 years of experience exclusively focused on recruiting senior quality assurance leaders and QPs. If you want to learn more about AssureBio's recruitment services, or if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, then please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.